titled The Good News, the Prosperity Gospel. The Good News, the Prosperity Gospel. And I'm going to give you something here from Nona Brooks, who was one of the great teachers of the divine science. She was a teacher, she was a minister, she was a healer. She said, remember again the metaphysical law that Jesus gave. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. The basis of this law he gave in this marvelous affirmation, I believe the first time it was ever stated, the kingdom of God is within you. This he gave for all humanity, for you and me, and for everyone, even those in history and those right now. And through this kingdom within, each can say with Jesus, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. So from Nona Brooks' words, we understand that Jesus was telling us that something that people read or people knew about from the Old Testament, from the book of Genesis, where God has given us dominion and authority over those things that concern us. But most people didn't understand that it's a real power. It's a power that we can use in practical ways, and it's a power that we can use to prosper us, to heal us, to bless us, to bring a greater harmony into our life, to give us greater peace of mind. It's not a power over anyone, even a power over anything. It's an empowering feeling of knowing that God is always present, and if God is present, good is present, that there's only one power, that's the power of good, that's the power of God, and that everything that we do, if we do it intelligently and we think it through to a rational, intelligent conclusion, then we shall find ourselves realizing more the good life, the joyful life. I received an email message way back in 2013 referencing an article written by Pastor Rick Henderson, which was posted on the Huffington Post, and it was titled, The False Promise of the Prosperity Gospel, Why I Called Out Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyers. That's the title of the article. It was written by Pastor Rick Henderson, posted on the Huffington Post, The False Promise of the Prosperity Gospel, Why I Called Out Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyers. And even though the title of the article would make you think that the author of the article was confident in what he was writing, he referenced a video from John Piper to substantiate his claims against Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyers. Excuse me. Here is some of what John Piper had to say about the prosperity gospel. He said, riches, are usually a curse. People are destroyed by them. He quotes the Apostle Paul from 1 Timothy 6:6 when we are told to be content with godliness. Those who desire to be rich end up badly. He says normal Christianity is pain. It is sorrowful, but always rejoicing. To follow Christ is to suffer. It is brief, only 80 years, and then comes heaven. Then he quotes John from Revelations, the same John who rejected non-Jews, Jews, and women from his movement. He also quotes Jesus from Matthew 19:24, saying, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God." And did Jesus really say this? The same Jesus who said, "It is the Father's good pleasure to give to you, and pray believing that you have. And for to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away." If Jesus said all these things that are attributed to him, then there is a gross contradiction in his teachings. And I don't accept that as true, but this is the reality for those who don't think Jesus' teachings through, to a rational conclusion. What did Jesus say? Well, what did he mean when he said it's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of God? He was saying that when we believe that it is our own human efforts that make us rich, the ego, which is edging God out, when we think it's our own human efforts that make us rich, instead of realizing that it's God working through us, for us, as us, then yes, it's going to be hard for us to enter the kingdom of heaven, because anything that we receive, anything that we accomplish through human effort, without knowing and understanding that God is a part of every activity that's good and and every activity that increases our health, our wealth, our prosperity, our success can be taken away from us. You know, that's why they have that old expression, easy come, easy go. For someone to quote Paul, Apostle Paul, and say normal Christianity is pain, it is sorrowful, but always rejoicing, to follow Christ is to suffer, it is brief, and then comes heaven. Well, where is that heaven? Jesus said, the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven is within you, not low here or low there. And the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's what he said. It's at hand. That means it's right here. It's available to us. We're just not lifting our awareness to that level of God consciousness, knowing that God is going to give to us every day our daily bread, which symbolizes the good life, the joyful life, the wonderful life, the prosperous life. Jesus said, it is the Father's good pleasure to give to you. Pray believing that you have. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And here we find one of the greatest problems with organized religion, with Christianity, in particular in this case, is that there are so many ministers, so many preachers, so many people out there, priests, churches, whatever, willing to follow Paul in the New Testament instead of following Jesus. Instead of calling themselves Christians who follow Christ, they should call themselves Christians who follow Paul. Paul did not have the consciousness of Jesus. No one on this earth has ever had the consciousness of God awareness that Jesus possessed. No one, absolutely no one from any religion held the consciousness to the degree that Jesus had of the oneness with the intelligence, the power, and the spirit that we call God. I and the Father are one. Not only did Jesus say it, Jesus demonstrated it. So why do they follow Paul and then call themselves Christians when Christians have the Christ? And Jesus said, each and every one of us have that Christ within us. Each and every one of us have that ability within us. He said, don't you know that you are God's? Don't you know that you are God's? Don't you know that there's a Christ, the incarnation of God's intelligence, power, and spirit within each and every one of you? The image, the likeness of God is your life. Your life is not your physical body. It's not your flesh and blood and bones. It's the life of you is your spirit. It's the spirit of God's intelligence and power. And God's very own spirit within each of us. That is the Christ within us. It's the God within us, that part of God that animates our body, thinks through our mind, brings to our awareness the greater desires, the greater good ideas, etc. Now, we can choose to see our relationship with God as morbid. Morbid, said to follow Christ is to suffer. It is brief, only 80 years. And to think that if we end up with a little money, we're going to end up badly, that's morbid. That's morbidity to the extreme. We can choose to see our relationship with God as morbid, that is, as a rewarding and punishing God. This is the God of religion for centuries, almost every religion. This is what primitive man believed, who believed that the earth also believed that the earth was flat. John Piper tells us that our treasure is in heaven. But is there a different God in the hereafter than there is here? Jesus said the kingdom of God is within, not low here or low there. And our Father which art in heaven, heaven meaning then the great invisible. That great invisible is right here, right now, right where we are. It's not far off in the sky somewhere. But Pastor Henderson and John Piper looked to the Apostle Paul for their guidance. They ignored the kingdom of God is within, not low here or low there, that Jesus tells us, and they ignored the fact that Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Perhaps like them, the Apostle Paul fostered religious dogma. This is a belief that Pastor Rick Henderson referred to substantiate his harsh judgments against Joel Osteen and Joyce Meyers. His article was far stronger against Joyce Meyers than it was against Joel Osteen. He even states at one time he wanted to believe what Osteen was teaching, but when he couldn't prove it, he called it or false doctrine. And finally, Pastor Rick Henderson writes, this is a thick and heavy subject. Even though I've written much, this only begins to scratch the surface of the repugnant nature of the prosperity gospel. Wow. Harsh judgment and arrogance from a Christian pastor against two other outstanding Christian pastors. I guess all depends on who you follow, whether you want to follow Jesus or if you want to follow those who talked about him. And this isn't thinking it through to a rational conclusion. Not at all. Not at all. You know, I don't subscribe to either ministry, either Joel Osteen or Joyce Meyers. You know, of course, you know, here we are at the Way to a Wonderful Life. We have our own ministry, and we try to keep our mind out of religious dogma and religion as much as possible, because like Jesus, we believe that our teaching is universal, that God's good is for everyone. Let's go back and look at those words again from the wonderful Nona Brooks, who was a divine science teacher and minister and healer. This is from 1935. She wrote, remember again the metaphysical law that Jesus gave. Metaphysics means the law of the unseen, just like gravity is a law of the unseen in the physical. Spiritual laws are unseen in the metaphysical, is considered metaphysical. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So how do we seek first the kingdom of God? We seek it in the invisible, in our mind, in our ideas, in our thoughts, in our beliefs. All these things are invisible until they're made manifest. So seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. If we want to seek God, we want to seek the good. The basis of this law, he gave in this marvelous affirmation. She says, I believe the first time it was ever stated that the kingdom of God is within you. He said, not only did he say that, he said the kingdom of God is within you, not low here or low there. It's within us, seeking to be expressed through us, as us, and for us by the Spirit that gave us life. And he gave this for all of humanity, not just for those who call themselves Christians, or not just for his Jewish brothers and sisters. He gave it to all of humanity, for you and me and for everyone right now. And through this kingdom within, each can say with Jesus, all power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. And that's no different than what we read in the book of Genesis, that God has given us dominion and authority over those things that concern us, that we are the living image, likeness of God. We're the living Spirit of God in flesh. The intelligence of God that took our spirit and clothed it in human form and put us here on planet Earth to enjoy this thing called life and to realize, finally, that life is not a test. It's a gift. Life is not a test. It's a gift. So stop the feelings that somehow God's abundance is a curse. Riches are usually a curse, this man said. People are destroyed by them. Those who desire to be rich end up badly. Well, did Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, did Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, did Warren Buffett, are all these people ending up badly? He said normal Christianity is a pain. Yeah, it's a pain because so many people believe in this nonsense that so many of these people are teaching about the teachings of Jesus, and they're teaching the religious dogma of St. Paul, or Apostle Paul, as we call him St. Paul, Apostle Paul, over the teachings of Jesus. Can you imagine? Calling yourself a Christian, but looking to Paul rather than looking to Jesus to follow. Follow Jesus and find the truth. And you'll find the truth within yourself. But how do we do that? We have to use our mind. We have to go into the great invisible and connect with it in our mind. From the ancient wisdom, from the book of Proverbs, we can read, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. Keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. That's from Proverbs 4:23. That's no different than Jesus saying, love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and equally important, love your neighbor as yourself. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, And look at Proverbs 4:23, keep thy heart with all diligence, for out of it are the issues of life. And realize that this kingdom of heaven that's within us, this kingdom of God that's within us, is our mind, it's our thoughts, it's our beliefs, it's our faith. What do we have faith in? Do we have faith in the good? Then we're going to see more good in our life. Do we have faith in our prosperity, that we can live a prosperous life? Then we're going to see more prosperity. Do we have faith in being healthy, that God is our health, we cannot be sick? How often do we say that? God is my health, I cannot be sick. Or how many times do we get on the phone and call the doctor to find out what's wrong with us, instead of realizing there's something very right with us, that God's goodness, God's power and presence and spirit is within us, seeking us to affirm God's image, likeness within us. It's all in the mind. In the book Reverend Ike's Secrets by the great Reverend Ike, he writes, God in you has given you the power of fascination to use, to be, and to do, and to have all the good that you desire. It is up to you to determine how you will use it. Now, this may sound strange, but it's true. There is power in fascination. It has power because whatever you're fascinated with, you eventually become. You automatically draw that which you are fascinated with unto you, be it either good or evil. Whatever you are fascinated with will come into your experience in one way, shape, or form. Now, those words of Reverend Ike are very true. That's why Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, but we have to become fascinated with the realization that all power is given to us on heaven and on earth, so that we have the dominion and authority over those things that concern us, and become fascinated with our own greater prosperity, become fascinated with our own greater health, become fascinated with our own greater success, become fascinated with our own greater creative expression and our loving relationships and our peace of mind, become fascinated with this metaphysical law that Jesus gave us. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. That righteousness means right thinking, intelligent thinking. And Jesus is always calling us to see that attribute of the infinite as intelligence. It's intelligence that created the world in which we live. It's intelligence that created these universal laws that work for everyone in the same way. It's intelligence that God would have an unconditional love for each and every one of us, because we are a part of God, just as our finger is part of our hand, just as the wave is part of the ocean, and without the ocean there is no wave. Without God's life, we have no life. We live because God, infinite spirit, infinite intelligence, infinite power lives within us, lives in us. We live because God lives in us. So as we become fascinated with those things of God, become fascinated with those words of Jesus where he tells us it is the Father's good pleasure to give to you. Well, it's the Father's good pleasure to give to me. What am I not seeing in my life? Why is my mind not open to a greater idea for myself, a greater image of myself? Pray believing that you have, Jesus said. Pray believing that on the unseen side of life, that everything is coming together to guarantee you, to give to you a greater health, a greater wealth, a greater joy, a greater happiness, a greater peace of mind, a greater enthusiasm for life. He says, and for everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. We ought to love this thing called life. We don't love life. Life is God. If we don't love life, we're not loving God. If we don't love life, life becomes diminished. Our health becomes diminished. If we believe, as John Piper believes, that that those who are rich end up badly, and normal Christianity is pain, it is sorrowful, but always rejoicing. To follow Christ is to suffer. It is brief, only 80 years, and then comes heaven. Well, then comes heaven for what? The kingdom of heaven is at hand, Jesus said. So to draw heaven into our life in a greater way is to draw more of the abundant good that God has prepared for each and every one of us, and to realize, as Jesus did, without conditions, that is the Father's good pleasure to give to me. And what is the Father? That was Jesus' affectionate term for this infinite Spirit that the human mind cannot fully conceive. He said the Father is Spirit, and we must worship Him, the Spirit, in spirit and in truth. In spirit and so how do we worship? To worship, to take our sorrows, to complain about life, to tell God about our sicknesses and our debt problems? No, but to affirm that God has created this abundant universe, this great prosperity, this abundant life for all of us. And it's just as Jesus said, I have come to tell you that you may have life and you may have it more abundantly. To say, I believe this is true, and become fascinated with how through the love of God and the law of God, that greater prosperity, that greater health, that greater joy, that greater success, that greater enthusiasm for life becomes made manifest in your life experience. And we can all be doing that. We can all become more fascinated with this thing called life as soon as we forget that life is a test and start realizing that life is a gift. And so it is.